Over the course of video game history, many different games have been celebrated for their big, unforeseen narrative twists. It could be a shocking character death, a huge identity reveal, or something so meta and world-shattering it has you questioning the very time you've spent on the thing in the first place. But one common trait that so many of these moments share is how they are often structured around and revealed by some extremely memorable villains. But unfortunately, one game that's always left out of these discussions is one of the most underappreciated RPGs of the millennium, BioWare's clunky 2005 masterpiece, Jade Empire. A personal favorite of mine that beautifully blurs the lines between mythology and reality, martial arts and magic, a sweeping epic tale that feels equal parts Journey to the West and a Jackie Chan movie. Now, you might think that it's silly as hell for me to be spoiler warning a video about a game that's nearly old enough to drink in the United States, but listen. The way that Jade Empire's story is presented and the manner in which its villains reveal multiple big, crazy twists is so fantastic that I think it's absolutely worth preserving for even one person out there who still might go play the game blind, or at the very least, the many of you guys watching this video blind right now. Because when it comes to narrative structure, Jade Empire is as clever as they come. And things are not so traditional as a single obvious bad guy waiting for you at the end of the road. Instead, there are three. A trio of shadowy, mysterious men whose personal backstories are intrinsically connected but couldn't be more different in the ways that they seek and wield power. Three brothers born into royalty that upset the sacred harmony holding this world together, and three villains that from the beginning to the very end keep you constantly guessing as to what is truly going on. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Villainpedia, a video series where we take these long looks at the most evil characters video games have to offer and try to figure out what makes each one of them special. I am Ghost, your host as always, and today's episode is a really unique and really fun one. But really quick, I do want to give a huge thank you to all of my amazing patrons for supporting me away from the tyranny of YouTube. You guys are the greatest. And now, let's begin. In the world of Jade Empire, harmony is more than a virtue. It's the operating principle of reality itself. The world of the living and the spirit realm are two essential halves of one whole. When the careful balance between them is preserved, the whole thrives, but if it should ever falter even a little bit, the consequences would be immediate and dire. The mortal world, as we know it in game, is dominated by the human kingdom called the Jade Empire, a massive continent-spanning realm full of diverse lands, a super rich history, a philosophical culture, and some surprisingly advanced technology. At its heart lies the impressive imperial city, where the emperor and his family rule from the famous bronze palace, which floats effortlessly over the astrological center point of the entire empire. Meanwhile, the spirit realm, along with the heavens and cosmos, are governed by a coalition of powerful deities known as the celestial bureaucracy, a concept pulled directly from classical Chinese theology. So imagine a pantheon that's much like a human government. Tons of different minor and major spirits, committees, subcommittees, councils, etc. to work all the necessary levers of existence. And though we never really get to learn much about the greater shape of this bureaucracy, one of its most important members, and really one of the most important characters in all of Jade Empire, is an entity called the Water Dragon. And the role of the Water Dragon is pretty straightforward. First, obviously, she manages all the water in the human world, rains, rivers, oceans, etc. And second, much more secretly, she is responsible for guiding the souls of the mortal dead along what this game calls the Great Wheel to join the afterlife. She is the central cog in an endless cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Well, long before the game actually takes place, thanks to a perfectly maintained balance, the Jade Empire enjoyed an extended golden age of peace and tranquility. It was ruled over by the Sun Dynasty, a lineage of emperors dating back an unknown but probably long-ass period of time that, as far as we can tell, have always guided this empire in the right direction. And during the height of these prosperous times, I would guess about 60 or so years before Jade Empire, the previous emperor fathered three sons. The oldest was named Sun Hai, by birthright the crown prince and heir to the imperial throne. The second, Sun Li, who as the middle child would eventually inherit command of the armies of the Jade Empire along with the title Glorious Strategist. And last came son Qin, who as the youngest was raised to lead a small but vital faction called the Order of the Lotus, a monastic group meant to guide the emperor and help him in his spiritual development. Now, backstory-wise, we don't really get to learn anything else about these three brothers and the situation they were born into. Clarity only starts to form around 30 years before Jade Empire begins, when these guys were all fully grown and well established. Sun Hai was carrying on the legacy of his dynasty, Sun Li and Qin were doing their things, all three were beloved by the people, and the empire was flourishing as it always had. But on the distant horizon, an unavoidable catastrophe was coming that would soon change everything. A terrible, apocalyptic-level drought. It arrived one hot summer, and the passing to autumn did nothing to quell it. Scorching heat burned all across the land. There was little to no rainfall for months and then years on end. Streams and rivers dried up completely, crops were impossible to grow. And as a result, hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, died, bringing the Jade Empire to the very brink of collapse. The people pleaded to Emperor Sun Hai every day to do something, anything, but at a certain point he was powerless. They pleaded also to the gods for intervention, for relief, but none ever came. It seemed as if it was destiny that the dynasty, the Jade Empire, should end this way, until one day, out of the blue, after a decade plus of suffering, the emperor sent out a royal decree declaring that the long drought at last was over. And at that very moment, almost like magic, water began gushing out of the bronze palace and into the earth below. Rain began to fall, rivers and streams rushed back to life, and the earth grew soft and fertile. To the common folk, this was a miracle, proof of the Sun Dynasty's divine right to rule, and briefly anyway, the empire rebounded, signaling a return to prosperity. But it didn't take long at all for some strange-ass things to start happening. Reports of ghosts coming down from the mountaintops and attacking rural communities, deadly creatures haunting once peaceful forests, and terrifying, violent men mobilizing to harass innocent citizens. The drought was over, but the spiritually attuned began to realize that the sacred harmony was out of balance. Something was deeply, deeply wrong. But as corruption began to spread all across the Jade Empire, no one yet knew the true reason why. Now, mystery is a wonderful thing in a video game narrative, because in a medium so interactive and immersive, a carefully curated path of discovery for the player is really one of the developer's greatest tools to make a deep emotional impact. BioWare especially used to be the master of this kind of thing, man. I mean, all of their Golden Age games from Baldur's Gate 1 through Mass Effect were riddled with these huge lore questions, these unknowns introduced early on that the player only gets to slowly unravel through environmental storytelling and, of course, those big predetermined narrative beats. So this super simple premise, the balances being out of whack, these three influential brothers being somehow responsible for it, and then the kind of baked-in assumption that the protagonist of this tale has a connection to these events, that is just good, clean video game writing. But for me, where Jade Empire's villains really carry this narrative and kind of separate themselves from others in the genre is the way that they hand the antagonist baton back and forth as the game progresses, until finally, one villain emerges above all the rest. So when Jade Empire begins, 20 years have gone by since the long drought ended, and the protagonist doesn't know anything about the world, even about their own personal past, and that is by design. You play as the star pupil of a rural martial arts school in the town of Two Rivers, led by the wise and beloved Master Li. The hero was brought here as an orphaned young child and has no memory of their origin, but life in Two Rivers is peaceful and disconnected from the greater issues of the Empire, with good friends and scenic surroundings. However, as the game begins, it seems that the protagonist is nearing the end of their training, and Master Li hints that he has some super important things that he still kind of refuses to just tell you outright.
The people are scared. I do not have all the answers, but I know you will become very important to the fates of many. You will be called to face a great evil.
Master Li!
But of course, right when it's getting kind of interesting, bandits attack your village and you are sent off to help, aka learn the ropes of the game's basic controls and combat systems. But just thematically, I adore the relationship that is established right away here between student and master. Because in any traditional martial arts or martial arts inspired setting, this is a deeply special, one-of-a-kind bond. But the fact that you were also an orphan and this guy pretty much raised you, it very clearly communicates that Master Li is the most important person in the protagonist's life. But it doesn't take long at all to sniff some of the darkness that's been spreading across the Empire, because those simple-sounding bandits, well, they end up being a little bit more sinister, able to summon ghostly minions, wield magic, and I mean, just look at this guy. He's been huffing some straight dark arts without a doubt. But Master Li, sensing this danger, comes sprinting down to the beach himself, and in a crazy show of his power, literally punches this dude's boat in half.
You! Well fought, my student, but I cannot risk you against a foe like this yet.
So blatant. We never thought to look in so humble a place. We expected an army. Your strategy, as always, is impeccable.
Your search is over, assassin, but no one will hear of your success.
It would seem that my past is catching up to me, and you are destined to be swept along.
And you can kind of sense that a big exposition dump is coming. You can feel it. And Master Li here is the one with all the information in the world. And this is what he decides to share.
Now, my student, there are many things ahead that you must discover about yourself. I trust you know the importance of your destiny. You are an orphan, but you were not abandoned. You were rescued from the Temple of Dirge in the land of howling spirits. You were orphaned by violent action. I take responsibility for it. You see, I used to be more than a humble teacher. To learn of yourself, you must learn more of me. I was once leader of the Imperial Army. I was known as Sun Li, the glorious strategist. I am the brother of Emperor Sun Hai.
Now, even with a limited amount of information this early in the experience, that is pretty surprising to hear. I always felt like this sounded more like late-game information, like this could be one of the big twists, but no. It's handed to you right at level 1, which I find fascinating. Li then describes how your home, Dirge, was assaulted during the long drought by his older brother because he wanted the territory, and that was the moment you were saved as a baby. But beyond just that, you are the last of your people, period, called the Spirit Monks. Then a great cutscene plays, and I want you to really pay attention to some of the details here. So the Emperor there, in the dangly hat, is laying siege to this place, setting it aflame, and with him is this fearsome masked warrior and another young man that we learn is Sun Qin, the youngest brother. Then of course we see Li, remorseful, escaping with you and grabbing this medallion thing while some very strange, incomprehensible stuff goes on in the background. So just as quickly as Li's importance to the player is established, so too is the presence of these other characters. The Emperor just looks like he's no fun to deal with, and Li claims that his younger brother Qin was actually killed that day, betrayed by the man in the demon mask whose name is Death's Hand, a super mysterious and quote, utterly evil man who Li blames outright for the wicked transformation of his older brother. And please also note this specific line for later on.
I have never faced him, but I know of no one living who has. A dark energy sustains him. That is the armor of a man who has no remorse, no pity.
Li then goes on to clarify the basic issue plaguing the Empire, which you probably picked up on by now, that since the drought ended, spirits of the dead have lingered instead of passing on to the spirit world. And given that Dirge was home to the spirit monks that defended and maintained the powers of the water dragon, things are beginning to kind of come into focus. Okay, now a pop quiz. If you yourself were gonna write a convincing twist, what are the two most important things that you really have to play with in the audience's mind? Anybody? Anybody? If you're answering, by the way, I can't hear you because you're watching a video, but to me, the answer is expectations and assumptions. We talked a lot about this in another recent Villainpedia episode on Renoir from Expedition 33. But it cannot be overstated how, if you want to surprise the player, important it is to misdirect all of the attention you can to an obvious and convincing early evil. And here in Jade Empire, the first few hours of the game begin to construct this big blinking neon arrow sign pointing directly at Death's hand. And I mean, yeah, he certainly looks the part, doesn't he? Blood red and black armor. Plus, I think we're all familiar with the kind of villain that begins by influencing a king or person of status like Lee suggests he is. Not to mention, way back in 2005, Death's hand, or at least his helmet, was all over the marketing campaign of this game. If you bought the deluxe edition on Xbox, his face was on the cover, and this expectation is only compounded further as the introduction continues. So shortly after this illuminating conversation, you enter this place called the Spirit Cave to go on a little personal quest of purpose finding. And here, two important things happen. First, you acquire that amulet we saw Lee grab in the cutscene, or the first part of it anyway. And this thing ends up being a massive plot device. What it is a conduit of ancient power that the spirit monks like yourself use to unlock the potential in magical gemstones in order to grow stronger. And secondly, the hero encounters the ethereal human form of the fabled water dragon, projecting a sliver of her consciousness to commune with you specifically, and she very cryptically explains that she has been badly injured, stolen away, and it's up to you alone to find the right path to her. But when you emerge, Master Lee seems a little, uneasy.
What are you doing out here? You are supposed to be meditating on the amulet and what you have learned for at least another day. Tell me, did you learn anything about the destiny that stretches before you, or what has led you this far?
And yet again, just as things are getting interesting, you are interrupted. This time hearing that your childhood best friend, Dawnstar, has been captured by this asshole Gao the Lesser, a fellow student of yours that has recently been expelled from the school. But after going off to rescue her while making this new friend along the way named Zhu, you return to find the entire town of Two Rivers engulfed in flames. Master Lee's martial arts school, your home, is in ruin. The majority of your close friends are dead, and it seems that the men who did this were directed to do so by influential and shadowy forces. One of the spirit monk's closest buddies, Wu, lies dying on the ground and describes the scene to you in detail. First, an odd woman in a mask enters the village with a group of men, and soon enough, it was Death's hand who personally oversaw the destruction. And if it wasn't obvious from the previous foreshadowing, these invaders were here for one thing only, Master Lee. And in the hopes of saving some of his students, he willingly gave himself over. So it's not just your beloved teacher and father figure being captured here, it's also Dawnstar's. You two are the only survivors. So it's a very traditional fantasy beginning, where your scenic home is destroyed, your innocence is lost, all thanks to this brutal, brutal villain. And with nothing left here to protect, to live for, you embark on a quest together to go rescue Master Lee and take down the men responsible. But let's now get off this kind of play-by-play rhythm and just talk much more plainly about Death's Hand as a character in-universe. So, at this point in time, his reputation in the Jade Empire precedes him to say the very least. He is the ruthless and stoic right-hand man of Sun Hai, who ever since the end of the long drought several decades back has been the public face of imperial strength, as well as the leader of a terrifying new faction called the Lotus Assassins, a deadly authoritarian paramilitary force formerly known as the Order of the Lotus, but maliciously repurposed when its former leader Sun Qin was killed. No one knows who Death's Hand is behind the mask. No one knows where he came from or how he got so crazy close to the Emperor. But he instills a level of terror across the land that is just unrivaled. His own assassins feel queasy in his presence. Some say he emits a foul aura that fills others with dread. And given how Sun Hai has become more and more reclusive over the last 20 years, many spread those rumors that Death's Hand has infected the Emperor's mind, that he's the one really calling the shots. He has always reminded me a lot of Darth Vader, and I think that is absolutely what the developers were going for: respect through fear. Death's Hand also has many of the characteristics one might expect from a traditional archetypal masked villain. As the game really gets rolling, he remains at a dramatic distance from the Spirit Monk, even as the party makes tangible progress in tracking Master Lee down, preferring always to send his Lotus Assassin goons after you no matter how many times they fail. And with every level up, every new friend recruited to the cause, and every step closer you get to the Imperial City, you get more and more amped up to not only take him down and save your master, but rip off that damn mask and finally reveal some truth. It's pretty crazy how even a place like the Jade Empire, with its magic and flying machines and apparently solid foundation of technology, could be pushed to the brink because of something like a drought. It really makes you wonder about our own world and what it would take to knock modern civilization right down to its foundation. But if that ever does happen, we can be very thankful for the sponsor of today's video, Hungry Minds Publishing's aptly titled The Book, The Ultimate Guide to Rebuilding Civilization. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a super cool, beautifully hand-illustrated like encyclopedia covering practically all of mankind's greatest inventions and discoveries, but in a really fun, whimsical medieval art style. And the information that's in here is genuinely so fascinating and well presented that while I was trying to film some of these shots for this here, I ended up just standing at my table and reading for like 30 or 40 minutes. And I mean, they really thought of everything, with sections on food, mechanics, optics, aviation, plants, or my favorite, of course, games. Oh, and look at this page right here on martial arts. So sick. They got that one guy in there. Ooh, and a Kani Basami, a scissor takedown. That is illegal in judo. I don't think you can do that one either. Books like these enchanted me so much as a kid, but ever since I got my hands on the book here, I think I've realized that I like them even more now. And by far, the coolest thing about this period is that there is a hidden puzzle, a quest for you to personally discover as you read, which I dare not spoil here. So if you are looking for a great gift for a curious friend of yours, or if you are curious yourself, hit the link down below and use code Ghostcharm10 for a nice little discount and start expanding that hungry mind of yours today. Again, that is code Ghostcharm10, and I want to sincerely thank Hungry Minds for sponsoring today's video. This thing is really, really cool. Now, back to the action. So if we consider Death's Hand to be some sort of ancient Chinese Darth Vader, then we should expect that the emperor he serves is far more than a mindless figurehead. And though at the beginning there is some genuine question about Sun Hai's nature and how evil or not he is, as the game progresses, the picture becomes a bit clearer that this guy is no angel. For example, Tian's Landing is the first area you visit after leaving Two Rivers, and a huge story hook here is how the local dam has been opened, resulting in the once prosperous waterfront drying up and completely ruining this historic town. But after digging into the story here more, you learn that just after the long drought ended, Sun Hai personally ordered the construction of this dam as he was obsessively trying to preserve water, and that this Tian's Landing was actually built then too, with the original being far upstream, now completely abandoned and flooded. And when you go there yourself during the main quest, you meet numerous restless spirits of children, the elderly, the sick, the poor, the imprisoned, and manual laborers that were purposely left behind and drowned. And this kind of echoes the theme we saw in that Dirge cutscene, that Sun Hai is a proud and reckless man. He's down for any plan that could satisfy his paranoia, or solve his big drought problem, or fortify his rule regardless of the consequences. And we know for sure he did something unholy to the water dragon. And for at least the first half of the game, possibly even more, I'm talking like 15 hours or so, that is all we know about any of our villains. But there is a super important element that we've yet to touch on, and that is how Jade Empire specifically presents and explores the very concept of morality. Because this is a choice-based RPG in the truest sense. You, as the last spirit monk, get to make countless decisions aligning yourself with one side of the moral spectrum. But instead of a black and white, good and bad system like you might find in Star Wars or something, Jade Empire insists that all of life's choices, both big and small, are purely a matter of philosophy. So do you live in the path of the open palm, or do you follow the teachings of the closed fist? Now I know it sounds kind of stupid, like it's the same thing but with a little bit of martial arts flavor, and gameplay wise I admit, it's not implemented perfectly by any stretch. But I deeply appreciate how this game attempts anyway to give a bit more nuance to the way that human beings behave and do the things that they do. The way of the open palm is dedicated to the idea of patience and compassion, while the closed fist relies on independence and inner strength. Both of them have severe pitfalls and weaknesses, and just like the overall theme of this game, usually the best path forward is with a healthy balance. But this is super important to remember because all of the characters in this universe, including the villains, also fall into these classifications. No one here is just evil for evil's sake. They are following a path that they truly believe is best for themselves and for the Empire. And don't worry, we're going to come back to this idea at the very end of the video. Another one of the huge strengths of Jade Empire's use of multiple villains is how they are all written so tightly into the narrative. And what I mean by that is how their lives, their actions touch the lives of so many other characters that you come across, most importantly, your beloved companions that you recruit on this quest. Dawnstar, your day one, is probably the most heavy-handed example, so get this. After Lee betrayed his brothers at Dirge all those years ago and fled with the last spirit monk, Sun Hai and Death's Hand immediately turned around and ordered assassins to kill Sun Lee's wife and child back in the capital. But the man who was tasked with carrying these assassinations out was none other than Sagacious Zhu, who grows to be one of your closest and most trusted allies. And when the moment came to murder an innocent child, this guy could not bring himself to do it. So instead, he defected. He fled the Lotus assassins and brought the baby in secret to Tian's Landing, where the orphan was soon rerouted into the care of Master Li in the nearby Two Rivers. That baby was, of course, Dawnstar, but neither she nor Li have any idea of the connection, and the reason you meet Zhu is because he's always keeping a watchful eye on that child. You also encounter this woman, Silk Fox, a ninja who taunts the party constantly, stalking your steps until you arrive in the Imperial City, where it is revealed that she is actually the princess of the entire Jade Empire. She is Sun Hai's daughter, moonlighting as a vigilante because she's horrified to see all the evil that's spreading so rapidly. So it really ends up being a family affair, and it's great how all these other characters shoulder the storytelling burden and fill in the blanks so you really get a full picture of all the bad guys. But in an effort to not get too lost in the weeds of all the little sub-stories and stuff in this game, let's jump forward now to one of the many climaxes of this story, where the party, while in the Imperial City with Silk Fox, is trying to do some digging into Death's Hand, find out who he really is and what he's up to behind the scenes. And this leads the party to do something the enemy would never expect: infiltrate the ranks of the Lotus assassins as a gang of phony new recruits. And here, oh my god, you see firsthand some of the horrifying dark things that Sun Hai and Death's Hand have been up to. Because the Lotus hideout, located appropriately amongst the dead in the necropolis, has been transformed into a factory making thousands and thousands of these grotesque golems. Huge thralls of jade and stone, nearly invincible to any attack, the beginning of a brand new, unthinking, unkillable army to serve the Emperor and solidify his rule. But what makes this truly nasty work is that these golems require a human soul to be infused into them for them to come to life, trapped forever. And as this creepy-ass fool says, the fresher dead the person, the better, and the more brutal the killing, the more potent the spirit. So for the past few years or so, Death's Hand has been rounding up these people from all over, enslaving them, terrifying them, and then slaughtering them like cattle, just so the Emperor can have a force at his disposal that will never question an order. Now that is evil stuff. But this is also probably one of the most fun sections of the entire game, where you get to blend in with these nasty assassins. You get to learn the lore of this place, the lore of some of these minor villains, and then sneakily pit them against one another to destabilize the whole place. The quest then culminates in corrupting the creation of a super important Jade Golem general, which sends the whole hideout into chaos. Until finally you encounter the main boss in this area, this woman, remember from Two Rivers with the creepy mask. Jia is her name, and she is the #1 servant of Death's Hand. And after you whoop her ass, a small piece of the spirit amulet draws the monk up the stairs here, when guess who? Like a monster movie, appears out of the darkness of a waterfall. It's the first time you've come face to face with him in the entire game. And damn, his aura is crazy. But thankfully, Sagacious Zhu is there to warn the spirit monk before he gets stabbed in the back, And now, I want you to just watch and see what happens.
He is too powerful. Go! I will do what I must. You knew you could not beat me, exile. I wasn't looking for victory. Just a few seconds.
So Zhao, the former Lotus assassin, sacrifices himself to crush his old master under a mound of rock. It's pretty sick. Honestly, I wish I had more time to go deep into this character and his backstory because he is super duper well written and very morally gray, always haunted by a past that he refuses to elaborate on, racked with guilt and anger but wanting to do the right thing, and this is his big moment to atone. I think it's great. And though it allows the rest of the party to escape and live to fight another day, you would be foolish to think that this is the end of Death's hand. But at this late stage, with the Hornet's Nest thoroughly kicked, the goal remains the same. Get to the Emperor, free Master Li, and figure out the truth of what Sun Hai did at the Temple of Dirge all those years ago. And since the party has the literal princess in your company at this point, it gives you a little bit of an in once you reach the Imperial Palace. But remember those two elements that we've been talking about, expectations and assumptions. Well, at this point, the first time I played Jade Empire blind, I remember distinctly feeling like the game was approaching its end. I mean, I had played for dozens of hours, explored tons of different areas, done every single side quest, maxed out a few martial arts styles, became the champion of the arena, I even cross-dressed in a play. I had done it all. And even the set dressings of this place, the waves of elite enemies that you have to fight through to reach the throne room, the music, the atmosphere, this is the big finale. It has to be. But two very interesting things to note as the party fights toward the throne room. First, all game long from the very beginning, there have been these moments where opponents of yours mention that there's an apparent flaw in the Spirit Monk style that they think maybe they can exploit, but you always seem to defend it at the very last second. It's something that means next to nothing the first time you hear it, but the more you are given this comment, the more it builds into a theme. And second, in the room just before the encounter with Sun Hai, you're in this garden lined with the tombs of past emperors and their families, where Silk Fox says both Sun Qin and Sun Li, her uncle's graves, have been constructed and sealed for her entire life. This confirms that the Emperor proclaimed publicly that both of his brothers died that day assaulting Dirge, which is very interesting. But at last, here comes what you've been building toward the entire game. The evil Emperor awaits, and the moment the party barges in, Sun Hai is engaged in a conveniently juicy conversation with his little brother. So let's just watch this big scene play out.
20 years, Li. I have waited long enough. Atone for your treachery and give me what I require.
Look to yourself, brother. You would have done the same.
I am the eldest, and therefore the Emperor. I have you at a disadvantage, and yet you toy with me. What do you know, glorious strategist? Where is the Spirit Monk amulet?
You will find out soon enough, brother.
Child? What are you doing here? I have important matters. And what have you done to yourself? You look like a common street woman. And who is this? You invite filth into the halls of my palace? This is not how the child of the Emperor should act.
Don't lecture me! Master Li's student brought me evidence from the Lotus Assassin Fortress. You allowed Death's Hand to corrupt the Empire!
Master Li's student? This child? The very person who tested my Lotus Assassins, brought to my doorstep by my own daughter. Brother Li, did you plant the seeds for this fool to come here? Layers upon layers, always the glorious strategist. Kill the rest. They are unimportant.
No! I won't let you disgrace the Empire!
Enough! I am God, Emperor, son! In my youth, I ruled dutifully. But nature does not respect titles. Withering drought, not battle, threatened to take my throne. But I would not allow it. I assaulted the underworld and claimed the great water dragon. And neither the treachery of my siblings nor my failing body could stop me. I am no longer a slave to time's decay. My actions have brought the Empire great strength, and its Emperor endless power. Who among you would dare challenge my right to rule? That glow. Brother Li hid the amulet in plain sight and acted as his own diversion, just as Death's hand diverted attention from me. The obvious threat hid the insidious one. Do you even know what you hold, child? What truly led you here? Do you blindly follow the will of your master? Is anything so simple? You were guided to me. What did Li tell you? That I murdered your people and caused the restless dead? Side effects, afterthoughts. This is about power, and I will add yours to what I have stolen. Even if you are impervious to my sorcery, it changes nothing. I am a god. Come, student of Li, your quest for death is at an end.
First off, absolutely incredible voice acting performance by Armin Shimerman, who also lent his voice to Andrew Ryan, Dr. Nefarious, and of course, he's Quark on Star Trek. But Sun Hai completely lives up to the billing and then some. He's a fully undead, insane ruler that already considers himself a god. And in his rotten open chest, there's that big gem of some kind, the water dragon's power. And when you finally get to throw down with Sun Hai one-on-one, man, it is the most annoying fight in the entire game by far. Because here in Jade Empire, ghosts and spirits, like as an enemy type, can only be harmed by weapon styles and certain magical styles. But my build on this playthrough wasn't exactly prioritizing those things, so this was a grind. And I mean dealing like literally 2 damage per slap, stunning him, 2 more damage, stun. Definitely an embarrassing way for the God Emperor to go out. And when his health finally hits 0, the feeling of victory is very real. At last, Master Li is free and he comes to thank you. But wait a second, something doesn't feel quite right.
You have made me proud. Everything has gone as it should. Your abilities have grown immensely, but it also does my heart good to see that you have remembered the basics of what I taught. Even the flaws.
Ladies and gentlemen, there it is. Even if it wasn't totally unexpected that Li was up to something, given his kind of secretive energy in the very beginning of the game, I think it is genuinely shocking that he just outright kills you by exploiting that weakness that I mentioned earlier. A flaw that Li himself carefully trained into your style over decades. He made sure that you were strong and wise enough to wield that dragon amulet, to get this far, to kill his brother for him, but with a secret little red button for Li alone to push at the finish line so he can take the Empire as well as the power of the water dragon. And even more villainous, which you really shouldn't overlook, is that Li doesn't even attempt to explain himself. He doesn't try to convince you to join him. He doesn't care. He just mercilessly murders the student that looked up to him more than anyone else in the entire world. And if the player had those expectations, those assumptions of the game nearing its end, they are utterly shattered as you hit the deck and shortly after awaken in the spirit realm. Now, I think that alone would make for a solid enough twist to satisfy me for the rest of the game. But you gotta remember that there are still so many questions left unanswered. Too many things that don't make sense. Death's Hand, for instance, is still a complete mystery. Lee's real motivations, the details of what has been done to the water dragon. And in the game's short final act, I really think there is some of the best and coolest video game writing in recent history that just ties things up beautifully. But to start, the protagonist is dead, which is quite a setback. But thankfully, as she always seems to do, the spirit of the water dragon appears to not only guide you and reinforce the truth that you have been betrayed, but use what little divine power she still has to teleport your spirit to your old home of Dirge, where you are tasked with cleansing her corrupted fountains so that hopefully she can bring you back to life. And man, when you arrive and start exploring, this place is overrun. Not just with restless spirits, but terrible and grotesque demons. This really is ground zero of the Sacred Harmony's imbalance. And soon enough, you encounter this specific spirit of someone that knew you very well as a baby. This is Abbot Song, and he has some absolutely insane world-shattering information to share with you, so I'm just gonna let him do the talking.
You are a spirit monk, born here in Dirge and cleansed in the sacred fountains. You were an infant the day the Emperor and son Li attacked our monastery. I tried to save you from the slaughter, only to lose you to Li when he ripped you from the arms of your dying guardian. I can only imagine what lies and distortions he told you about Dirge, your heritage, and his own role in events here. But now you deserve to hear the truth. We were beaten. All around me, my fellow spirit monks were dying. I tried to hold the attackers at bay. Prince Qin attacked me, and then Master Li cut me down from behind. The Emperor ascended unopposed, but already Son Li and Prince Qin plotted against him. The glorious strategist was not content to watch his brother come to power. Emperor Sun Hai, ruler of the Jade Empire, stepped beyond his station and slew the water dragon, claiming her power for his own. His brothers tried to strike him down, but they could not know he would be so strong. Infused with the water dragon's power, he was now unbelievably powerful. Son Li escaped with his life, but he left his brother, Prince Qin, to suffer the Emperor's terrible vengeance. A spirit monk child still lived. He killed your guardian. Claiming his identity, no longer a servant of the Emperor, Li abandoned his fearsome armor to become the master you thought you knew. If you and the amulet were the key to defeating his brother, he might still claim that power. Li disappeared with you and the amulet, escaping the Emperor's retribution. With his newfound power, the Emperor, as a taunt to his traitorous brother, bound Qin's spirit to the armor Li had left behind. And Death's Hand was born.
Wow, so there you have it. Maybe too much new information to even process. The man in the armor that night, that was Sun Li. The man in blue that the first time around we assumed was Li is just some nameless monk, murdered, possibly even the protagonist's own father. I just think it is so clever. It's genius and perfectly executed to use the very same cutscene 2 times like this. The first from the perspective of this monk through Li's mouth, so not a complete lie, but an incomplete truth, and the second time an objective account straight from Abbot Song, a victim of Qin and Li's that fought and died defending your life. But my favorite aspect of this, of course, is Death's Hand. Sun Qin's tormented spirit trapped inside of his big brother's armor, are you kidding me? That's gotta be the most evil act in the entire story. And one has to wonder, in that moment of betrayal where Qin stabs Hai to stop him, what were his intentions? Was he just going along with Li's plan to stop their crazy-ass brother and claim this power for themselves? Did they intend on sharing it? Or was he trying to protect the water dragon in some way? Unfortunately, these are questions that are never answered. But let's now return also to that ever-important amulet of yours, which Li was able to claim off your corpse after the big betrayal. This amulet is what Sun Hai was hankering for years. It's the reason he was trying so desperately to hunt down Li and bring him in. Because if we use this analogy of water, Sun Hai had the heart of the water dragon and genuinely became godlike. But the power that he was able to draw from it was like a slow-flowing or even leaky faucet. However, with the amulet, one would be able to turn that thing on full blast and ascend so rapidly, who's to say how powerful they could become? But as the spirit monk in ghost form progresses across Dirge with Abbot's song, every water source cleansed weakens Li's ability to channel all that power, and it doesn't take long for him to understand exactly what is happening.
I sense my former student refuses to rest easy. The time for subtlety is past. You are too valuable to abandon a second time. Come, we must return to Dirge.
So now, things are building toward an actual epic conclusion. And yet again, in an effort to not get too lost in the weeds, let's skip ahead to the moment where the spirit monk successfully cleanses Dirge, returns to life, and is told something very troubling by the water dragon. That until her physical body, which is rotting away in the Imperial Palace, is destroyed, she will never be allowed to fully die and thus be reborn again. So all paths to victory are leading you back to that damn palace. Now, when a game has this many villains, it's kind of a challenge from a design perspective to make sure each one of them is in the spotlight for long enough to really stick with the player long after the credits have rolled. I talked a lot about this when I covered the Chosen 3 from Baldur's Gate 3 and how that game honestly kind of failed in this regard. But I actually think that this is yet again one of Jade Empire's greatest strengths. Because when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense for Li, after resurrecting Death's Hand, to just send his Frankenstein monster after you in Dirge while he chills and channels more power in the palace. And in a really cool villainous moment, the night before this assault on Dirge, Li comes to you in a dream, taking place in the old martial arts school you once shared, where he's taunting you and saying all your old friends are dead because of you. Which is absolutely true. They had to die so that you would leave Two Rivers and go on this elaborate quest for your master. And it just drives home that sickening feeling that you've helped the main villain so much with every step you've taken. It's damn good stuff. But the next morning, it is a full-on Helm's Deep experience. Death's Hand's forces are at the gates. Golems, soldiers, Lotus assassins, and something for every single member of your party to go and do. But narratively speaking, this entire battle sequence is just an opportunity at last for Death's Hand to have his center stage moment. And in this kind of surprising turn of events, he attempts to manipulate one of your pals, Sky, to get close to the spirit monk, and shows a lot more personality than you ever would have expected. But after trying to reason with this villain, you quickly see that it is a path to a brick wall.
That name means nothing. I am the will of the Emperor. I am Death's Hand. Sun Li commands that you die. I must obey. The will of the Master guides me. The strength of the dragon empowers me. I cannot be defeated. I must obey. You know nothing about me, about what I endure. Your fists will not defeat me, not while I must obey.
And then, as is expected, you fight. And it is a challenging, wonderful encounter. Super cinematic with the snow falling just outside. Not to mention, this is the place where Sun Qin 20 years prior was killed. It's probably my favorite boss fight in the game, especially because you know the second you grind that health bar down, something interesting is gonna happen.
You refuse to see it, don't you? You must know who Death's Hand realize by now, but what he is defies you, defies your skill. He is more than Sun Qin ever was.
Do you pretend to have insight into my character? Some great truth from beyond the pale that will reform me? I am no villain. There is no malice in my actions. I had no choice. My brother had no restraint. A world under his heel would be chaotic and violent. I will bring order. I will ensure that everyone is safe within their roles.
This is a fascinating little peek into Li's personal psychology. He thinks, no, he knows that he is saving the Empire, and this elaborate as hell 20-year scheme was the only way for him to do it. And in his defense, the place had been a complete dump under his crazy older brother. So who's to say if Li became a god fully, it wouldn't be better for the people here in 5 or 10 years' time?
In the end, it changes nothing. I intend to make the Empire a better place. As a god, it will be a simple matter. Arise, Death's Hand! You are bound to this power, and you will not stop until this fool is dead.
But when Death's Hand is rising again, the spirit monk openly challenges Li, saying, you know what? I'm something of a big powerful guy now myself. I could free Death's Hand. I could use him as my own slave. And this is my favorite part of the game, period. Li says, okay, bet on it. Let's engage in a battle of our wills for command over this creature, and you get to personally control the spirit of Sun Qin against Li's rattling old suit of armor. Oh, come on, man, it is so cool. And it's yet another great cinematic fight. I just love when games aren't afraid to throw you into someone else's shoes for the sake of a moment like this. And when the spirit of Qin succeeds, Li shows some genuine frustration for the very first time, as he beckons you back to the Imperial Palace for the final battle. But before you go, you do have one more big decision to make.
Please, let me rest. Let my spirit finally have some peace. I believed the words of my brother, thinking him wise beyond my understanding. Had I known what would happen, I would have fought to stop them both.
Sun Qin, at last, gets to speak, and it seems that he, of the three brothers, was the only one with once noble intentions, or so he says. If you should choose to release him, the golems outside stop their assault immediately and you get an absurd amount of open palm points. However, if you are indulging in a closed fist playthrough and you want to grab Death's Hand as a party member for the stretch run, it is well within your power to do so. But I warn you, the rest of your friends will be disgusted at you for it and leave your company permanently if you decide to keep him. Oof, I love this kind of thing so much, man. But ultimately, I mean, come on. Let's go ahead and let this guy be at peace. It makes almost too much sense that in the end, Li is the last villain standing. They call him the glorious strategist for damn good reason. A man of absurd intellect and patience. Not to mention a lethal, legit martial arts master in his own right, and now at the very end of the road, wielding the near untapped power of the water dragon. Honestly, you gotta tip your cap and respect the execution of this plan. And if not for his single oversight, that the fractured little spirit of the water dragon might reach out and guide the spirit monk to bring the balances back, he would have easily succeeded. But when you return to the palace, on your way to the throne room, the water dragon guides the party to the ultimate crime against nature, Sun Hai's doing. Her physical corpse, mangled, tied to a crude machine and acting as a tap of infinite power for the Emperor and of water for the Empire. And so it rests on your shoulders again to make a big decision. You either free the body of the dragon and allow her to be reborn, or attempt to claim that power for yourself. We are obviously taking the high road in this video, and I adore this little moment a lot. Oh my god, that's really funny to me for some reason. But now, for real this time, you are at the end. All of your enemies have been vanquished utterly, and only your old master remains.
Ah, there you are. I knew you would come, and I have grown very good at waiting. You are very different from the student I once taught. Death changed you, I imagine. I apologize for that indignity, but it was necessary. It was also meant to be the end of you, but you surprised me again. I should have studied your people before wiping them out. Even so, I did my best. I made you strong enough to achieve your destiny, but with a weakness I could exploit. I thought I anticipated everything, but you proved me wrong. I killed hundreds of your kind, thousands, just for the chance to become a god. I can't let you live, now that I am one. I am more than Sunhai ever was. I will undo the damage of his ignorance, force the dead to their rest, and keep the waters flowing. My empire will be ordered, obedient, and neither ghosts nor gods will plague it. And you are all that stands between me and the new peace. My brother summoned underlings to defeat you. I will create them from the very stone.
Man, this guy just has incredible presence, and I love how as he goes more and more mask off, his voice loses that calmness of a teacher and gains a sinister bite. Shout out to the late voice acting legend Barry Denon, who absolutely killed it in this role. But annoyingly, before fighting you himself, Lee insists on playing some stupid ass games, showing off his power by summoning these big stone demons out of the walls, which are just absolutely horrific to fight. I mean, I hate it. Good lord, it probably took me 7 or 8 attempts for some reason. I don't even know why. But once you clear that, you have backed the glorious strategist into his final corner, where in a desperate swing, he taps into the depths of his newfound powers and turns the spirit monk into a hunk of rock. And while at first this might seem like yet another annoying phase before Lee actually faces you, I honestly really enjoy this part thematically, because Lee's tone changes, almost as if he's your teacher again, and this is the final test, the final lesson. He's attempting to crush your resolve from within. But ladies and gentlemen, have you ever heard of the power of friendship? Because here in this little pocket realm, the energy of your companions come to your aid to balance the fights, defeating these ghosts of various adversaries from your travels. And once again, you are able to overcome.
The loyalty you inspire is also tiresome, but I respect it. You have truly become a spirit monk. In another time, I would be proud of your ability. I see now that the water dragon's power is the prize, not the means to victory. No matter what I expend, while you live, you will resist. That is your role. No great waves of energy, no demons from the walls. Skill versus skill, master versus student, as you said. I expect you have corrected the flaw in your style. No matter. Beyond the basics, I also taught you focus. Match me if you can.
Now, for all his lying and scheming over the course of his life, Lee honors this word. This final fight has 0 tricks, no deception. Just a battle of pure skill to decide the fate of the entire Jade Empire. And it is a pretty damn good one. Now personally, my build on this playthrough was a little bit on the cheesy side, I'll be honest, pairing a stun-locking style with a super fast high damaging one, so I didn't have much trouble. And I guess if I had one criticism of this final boss battle, it's just that it would be cool if it took place somewhere new. Say in the mouth of a big waterfall, or on the roof of the palace or something. Because just a few hours earlier, I was slapping Lee's older brother all around in this room. But really, I'm just nitpicking. It's a great finale, right down to the final punch.
You surprise me yet again. I'm a better teacher than I thought.
And I just love that as Lee's final line. No bitterness at the end, just astonishment. And as Lee falls, all of the power that had been drawn from the water dragon over 20 years is at last released, allowing her to be reborn in full. The people of the Jade Empire then celebrate the party as heroes, as the tyrannical grip of this dynasty is loosened, and for the first time in decades, the sacred harmony is restored. So let's now look back at each one of these three brothers with everything we know at the end credits and kind of take stock of what villains we have here. And first, let's review Sun Qin, aka Death's Hand, who is very surprisingly, when all is said and done, likely the least evil of the three by far, arguably even being good in his initial intentions from what he personally claims. But this is really the character that remains clouded in more mystery than anyone else in the entire game. What he and Li discussed before the events of Dirge back in the day. What Qin privately wanted for himself, for the Empire. What horrible sensations he was experiencing once he was turned into Death's Hand. This is all unknown. Now, officially, Jade Empire states that Qin was of a neutral alignment between the way of the open palm and closed fist, which is pretty fascinating. But of course, his wrathful spirit, wielded as a tool, caged by one of his brothers to taunt the other, was the single most terrifying and destructive force across the whole of the game. That's undeniable. So to me, Qin is the definition of a tragic villain. And narratively, the perfect distraction, the perfect attractor of not just the player's expectations and assumptions at home on their couch, but the people of the Jade Empires as well. I just think he is so well executed, and honestly, I'm glad we don't know more. We don't need to. Qin is my favorite of the three. But Sun Hai, by comparison, ends up feeling like the most one-dimensional brother by a mile. And I actually think that that is a very good thing for the balance of this story. Because Hai's more traditional kind of Mad King, power-hungry vibes he's got going on, it's the catalyst for any of the game's events taking place at all. And I really enjoy how he's driven by a sense of personal destiny to the point where he is willing to in turn defy the destiny of the Empire. Because the way that like the Water Dragon and some of the other celestial characters you get to meet along the way talk about the long drought and all the bad stuff the Empire has been facing in the last few years, it's kind of like, this is just the way of the universe. Good and bad things are going to happen. Dynasties rise and fall. You gotta have that balance of life and death. So it was, in a sense, destiny for this long drought to come along and end the Jade Empire as the world knew it so that it could die and be reborn again into something new. That's just the whole theme of the game. But of course, Sun Hai crosses that line. He claims forbidden powers, opens Pandora's box, upsetting everything and creating, in a way, a ghost of an empire that should have already been long gone. I think it's such a compelling and human path to evil. And if you try for a second to see things from his perspective, why the hell should he respect this sacred harmony and the balance of the universe if all of that stuff led to the suffering of his people? Who's to say that his path to damnation wasn't paved at first with good intentions? But I don't know. He's also just kind of a bastard, and Sun Hai, I love you for it. And then finally, you have the crown jewel of Jade Empire, Sun Li, the glorious strategist. And come on, man. This guy is just marvelously written. And in the spirit of this game's kind of philosophical approach to morality, I adore how he's never at any point turned into a mustache-twirling you fell into my trap haha type of villain. Everything Li does is extremely cold, calculated, data-driven, and matter-of-fact. He remains laser-focused on what he wants at the end of the path and acts only within the justifiable parameters of his current situation to reach the next step of his plan. Even if that means waiting literally decades and raising some kids to do a lot of the work for him, and putting on this whole persona of a humble old master. Personally, I can't think of a more patient villain in all of video game history. And when the scope of his full plan is revealed with the flaw in your style and stuff, that is just S-tier villainy. But ultimately, my favorite thing about this collection of antagonists is how these guys are brothers. Royal brothers. Because all across human history, characters, real people just like these have lied, cheated, stolen, and murdered to claim the ultimate seat of power. Healthy and unhealthy competition between siblings has defined every great empire known to mankind. And the way this game explores that theme, adding in the martial arts flavor and playing with our expectations and assumptions at every turn, it is nothing short of fantastic.